It says different things to different people.
Yeah, yeah. Not someone that I would turn my back on to, nor would I trust. Okay. Yeah, he doesn't have art. He doesn't have the only back that he's got is his own back. Okay. So we had started a tshuva yesterday. It's a little bit more complicated. The question is, can I make money off of an enterprise because someone gives me a gift? That was the question, where I sent someone to purchase something or sell something, and the other party gives him a gift. And the question is, who does the gift belong to? So he started with this discussion about a person who, an Am Haaretz, who sends a chaver to purchase an item, and you have to sort of look and analyze the psychology of the seller. And we had a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi in this Maseches Demai, whether the seller is planning to give this item or is selling the item to the owner, to the buyer, or to the shaliach. And in that case, it depends on whether or not you have to tithe the item that is being sold. And then he says, now, let's look at another Gemara. Gemara is in Maseches Ksuvas, the Isa b'Mishnah Sham, Almana Shahisa Ksuva Masayim, Machra Shavimana. An Almana who had a 200 zuz value Ksuva, that's the standard value. And she sells 100 worth of that ksuva. In other words, she sells half of the ksuva's value for 200, meaning she says, when it comes time for me to collect this ksuva, which is collectible right now, you can collect half of whatever I get, and I'll collect the other half. And the guy pays her 200. She's very industrious because it's only worth 100 for him. O shava masayim b'mana. Or if she sells the whole ksuva, but she sells it at a discounted rate of 100, she's not that smart, perhaps, or maybe she's under pressure. So in that situation, we consider it as if her ksuva has been paid out. The hikshasa hagemara sham ma'ishna shava masayim b'mana da'amri la hayasomim ativ sadata et atzmech v'amesh shemachart ksuva seich b'chatzi machir. And the Gemara asks the question that she no longer has the power to collect 200 zuz with that ksuva. He says, because the orphans can say to her, you caused your own loss because you already sold your ksuva. You sold that promissory note. Shavamana b'masayim nami tomer lahem halmana ani hirvachti la'atzmi. So why can't she say the same thing when she sells only half of the ksuva for 200? Why can't she say, I'm the one who profited for myself? So we really need to take a look at the Gemara to get a fuller understanding. So we'll take a quick look. Tzadi Ches Samad Aleph in the Gemara. Let's give us a sec. Talmud. Ketubot. Tzadi Ches Samad Aleph. 98:1. Bless you. Okay, Alma, it's a Mishnah. Oh, sorry. Oh, you don't have it? Oh, 1 second. Isn't that strange? Why is it not showing up on the screen? Okay, hold on. Give me 1 sec. Share. It's really interesting. Okay, there we go. A widow whose marriage contract was worth 200 dinars or zuz, and she sold property that was worth 100 dinars for 200 dinars, or if she sold property worth 200 dinars for 100 dinars, she has received payment of her marriage contract and can demand nothing more. So this is so basically, and she sold property that I guess that was designated for the ksuva that was worth 100 dinars for 200 dinars. Or if she sold property worth 200 dinars for 100 dinars, she has received payment of her marriage contract and can demand nothing more. Isa ksuva vasamana, if her marriage contract was worth 100 dinars and she sold property worth 100 dinars, machar shavamana v'dinar b'mana, michra batel. Sale is void because she sold property that did not belong to her. Even if she says, I will return the additional dinars to the heirs, the sale is nevertheless void. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, actually, the sale is valid. It is not considered an invalid sale until there is an error so extreme that had there been no mistake, it would have remained in the field an area required for sowing 9 kav of seed. Okay, and this can reasonably claim that they are unwilling to give up the land that belongs to them. However, if the error is less than this, it is enough if she returns the remainder to the orphans. In the case of a garden, the sale is void if it had, okay. I'm not sure. So it is confusing. Let's take a look at the Gemara. The Gemara questions the first halacha mentioned in the Mishnah, which teaches that if the widow sold property worth 200 dinars for 100 dinars, or if she sold property worth 100 dinars for 200 dinars, in either case, she can no longer demand any payment of her marriage contract. The Gemara asks what is different about the case where she sold property worth 200 dinars for 100 dinars, where the halacha is that she has received her entire marriage contracts, as the heirs can say to her, you caused yourself to lose out since you received from the estate the value of your entire marriage contract. But because you sold it improperly, you did not receive its full value. She basically takes real estate from the estate of her husband, sells it for 100 dinars when it's worth 200, and the Yisomim can say to her, well, you took a property that was worth 200, that was the payment for your ksuva, so leave us alone. Just because you were not enterprising enough on it, that's not our problem. Why then, in the case where she sold property worth 100 dinars for 200 dinars, can she not also say to the heirs, I profited from the sale, but I received only the value of 100 dinars from the estate, and I am entitled to another 100 dinars? She should say, I took a piece of real estate that was worth 100, and I was smart and I sold it for 200. So you guys still owe me 100. So I can only sell it, right? So Amarav Nachman Amarav Bar Avuha. Okay, Kan Shana Rebbe Hakol Lebaal Hamos. Here Rebbe Yehuda Hanasi taught that it can be learned from this Mishnah that it is Rebbe Yehuda Hanasi's opinion that everything belongs to the owner of the money. That is to say, if one earned a profit through the actions of his agent, the profit belongs to him and not to the agent, as it is taught, and this is where we're connecting to our discussion here, as it is taught in a brisa, where the sages debate this matter. In a case where one sent an agent to the marketplace to purchase merchandise at a certain price, if in addition to items that the agent purchased, they added for him one extra item, the entire profit belongs to the agent. This is the statement of Rebbe Yehuda. Rebbe Yossi says, the owner of the money and the agent split the profit. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in a brisa that Rebbe Yossi says everything belongs to the owner of the money? Rami Bar Chama said this is not difficult. Here the brisa is referring to an item that has a fixed price. If the seller added something, it is clear that the additional item is a gift, but it is unclear if the gift is meant for the agent or for the owner of the money, so it is split between the two. Whereas there, the price is referring to an item that does not have a fixed price, And one can say that any additional items that were given were not intended for the agent, but were part of the overall deal and belong to the owner of the money. Okay. Okay. So, and that's how Rav Papa paskins. So the bottom line is that the Yasomim, the estate of the husband, the heirs of the husband, can say to this woman, you are doing business with property that is not yours. And therefore, any profit that you make belongs to the owner of that property. So if you made 200 zuz, even though you did it through our property, but it wasn't your property to sell at the time when you sold it, you acted as our proxy. And therefore, that money really belongs to us. No, the entire sale of that property belongs to us because you sold our land. And therefore, we can tell you, keep your 200 zuz, and we don't owe you anything anymore. We've paid you for the ksuva. That's the comparison. The comparison, right? That's right. Well, that makes sense also. Why are you taking something that belongs to us and giving it away? So you incur the loss. But if you take something that's worth 100 and you sell it for 200, shkoyach to you. Give us, so that's our money. You want to keep it? You've been paid in full for your ksuba because we have a debt to you for 200. So that's the principle that we're working with over here. Okay. So he quotes the Gemara, and then he quotes this machlokus between Rebbe Yehuda and Rebbe Yossi. So that kan bedavar sheyesh lo kitzva, kan bedavar she'ein lo kitzva. Amar Rav Papa, Hilchasa, davar sheyesh lo kitzva, cholkin, davar she'ein lo kitzva, hakol bal hamos. So let me just switch the screen back. Okay. So the bottom line is that the principle works as follows. When a seller adds more merchandise and it's something that has a fixed price. So I send my shaliach to buy widgets, and the widgets are $10 each. And the guy, I give him $100. I say, buy 10 widgets. The guy comes back with 11. So it's clear that the seller was adding a gift to the widgets. And so in that situation, davar sheyesh lo kitzva cholkin, it's unclear whether the seller who's giving it an added gift means to give it to the original, the dispatcher, the principal, or whether he's giving it to the agent, to the shaliach. And therefore, the principal and the agent split it. But davar she'ein lo kitzva, hakol lebal hamos. But if its widgets fluctuate in price, and it's unclear whether this was considered that, so therefore it could be that this was part of the sale and it's not a gift, then everything belongs to the principal, to the mishalech, the dispatcher, and not to his shaliach. That's right. That's right. And it's part of the legitimate sale. Uperish Rashi Sham. Atam decholkin bedavar sheyesh lo kitzvahu mishum demitzad echad yesh lomar de l'shliach nasna umitzad sheni yesh lomar lebal mos nasna lechen yachlok. And Rashi explains, as we saw in the Gemara, that it's not clear. Did the seller mean for the gift to go to the principal, or did he mean for it to go to the agent? And therefore they split it. The Yotze lefishitas Rashi. The im amar hamocher beferish shehunosein lashliach are kulo shel hashliach. But what becomes clear from Rashi is that if the seller clarifies that here's 10 widgets, and I'm throwing in another widget for you, Boychik, because I like you, and you're a nice shaliach, then it's clear that the shaliach gets to keep the entire amount. In other words, so in a case where the seller clarifies, here's 2 football tickets, go take your wife, have a great time. And the guy says, you mean I get to keep it? I don't have to give it to my boss? He says, no, this is for you. You and I had a great relationship. I like you. If you ever want to come work for me, come work for me. So in other words, it's clear from the context that the guy's giving the shliach the gift and not the buyer. So then it belongs to the shaliach, because the only reason for splitting it is because it's unclear. Now, v'kasha al Rashi midivri haYerushalmi hanal sha'amar behedya the kaven shal yedei ma'osav shel zeh hirviach magia lo chelek mehamatana. He says the problem is that in the previous Yerushalmi, it sounds like it's not based on a suffix, but rather it sounds that that both the principal and the agent are contributing to the gift. In other words, they've both sort of earned the gift. The fellow who is the buyer, the principal, it's his money, and that's why this transaction is taking place. The shaliach is also partially responsible for the success of this gift because he's got a winning personality, and he's the one who executed the transaction. So it seems like from that previous Gemara that it's not a question of we're not sure who it should go to and therefore split it, but rather because they both contributed to the acquisition of the gift. That's why they split it. Usvara zu shayechet gam im hamocher omar beferush shahamatanu bishvil hashaliach. And therefore, according to the Yerushalmi, even if the seller says, here's tickets for the game, take your wife, and he's clearly addressing the shaliach, the buyer could say, no. It was you only got those tickets because of my money. So therefore you have to give one of those tickets to me. Lama pirish Rashi shecholkim achmas asafik. So why does Rashi say that it's only because of the lack of clarity? It should be, even if there is clarity to whom the seller wants to give the tickets, the buyer should still have rights to them. That's the question. Va'od kasha, and he says another question is delafishitas Rashi diyesh safek leminasna me'achar v'hashliach muchzak b'matana yitzarach lios adin dahamotzi mechavero olav haraya. So he says, and furthermore, let me ask you another question. According to Rashi, anytime you have a suffix, a doubt, as to who is entitled to a certain financial item, if one person is the muchzak, is in possession of the item, and the other person is not, how do you rule? You rule in favor of the person who's in possession of the item. And we say to the other guy, Hamotzi mechavero olav haraya, you want to extract it from the shaliach? Prove it. Ba'ayin betaz shehikshakeinu mashatirei sham. So I refer you to the Taz who asks this question, and you can take a look. Uvesefer marcheshes kosav liyashe v'shitos Rashi al pi Gemara b'bava kama, and this is actually a very scholarly response. I've never seen him get so in depth in the sources up until now, but this is really quite complex. So he says the Sefer Marcheshes tries, which was one of the Achronim, tries to answer Rashi's position that it's a suffix al pi Gemara b'bava kama, using a Gemara in Bava Kama. Parashel echad v'havlad shebesocha shaykh la'adam acher. So he says the Gemara talks about a case where there are two people who have a partnership. One guy owns the cow, and another guy owns the fetus that the cow is pregnant with. Okay? Now, that's possible. You can sell, I guess in theory, and the Gemara will discuss that, you can sell a fetus to somebody else. Okay? Masha hapara shavayoser machmas shehi mifutemes magia hakol lebaal hapara. He says, if a person were to sell the cow because it is fatter now, because it's pregnant, that fattiness, that greater value due to its having become fatter, right, belongs to the owner of the cow, and the owner of the fetus is not entitled to that. He just gets the calf when the calf is born. It'll produce more milk, etc., etc. Ulami magia hatosefes al masha hapara shavayoser machma shehi menufachas shahavlad besocha. So there's actually two things that the Gemara describes: mifutemet and menufachat. Mefutemet is fatter or heavier, and menufachat means that it's larger. And apparently those are two different financial assignments. So Rav Papa Amar Hakol Baal Hapara. So Rav Papa says its larger girth, which adds to its value, also goes to the owner of the cow exclusively. The Rav Acha Bar Ika Amar Shecholkin Kiven Dahanafach Ba Gam Al Yedei Havlad Shebetocha. And Rav Acha says no. Part of the increase in its girth is because of the fetus that's inside. So therefore they have to split it. V'lichora divrei Rav Papa sosrim zeh. So now it seems like Rav Papa is contradicting himself. The Biksuv is Sham Pasak Rav Papa the Davar Sheyesh Lo Kitz V'cholkin. Kevin Shegam Biglal Hashaliach Ba'amatana. Because Rav Papa in Ksuva says that when two people contribute to the acquisition of a greater profit or a gift, then they should split it. That's what Rav Papa had said. When it comes to, like, you get the 11th widget, Rav Papa had paskined in Ksubis that the shaliach and the principal split it. Why then did he say that the added girth of the cow belongs exclusively to the owner of the cow? He says, didn't the fetus contribute to the increased girth, and therefore he should get a part of it? Just like the case of the widgets. And he says, the Marchesha says, it's this contradiction in Rav Papa's position that makes Rashi conclude that it's not clear to whom the seller wanted the gift to go to. And that's why they split it. But if indeed, the seller makes his wishes known, and that's why Rashi explains it that way, because otherwise Rav Papa is contradicting himself. It's not clear in the case of the seller of the widgets whether he wants the gift to go to the principal or whether he wants to go to the agent. Gam Rashi moda the paskinan benafcha the cholkin kamo Rav Acha mishum the harevach ba al yedei shneim. But Rashi will agree that when, even when there's no suffix, both the principal and the agent split it, because he paskins like Rav Acha, who says that since the fetus and the cow both contribute to its added girth, so then they should split the added value based on its increased girth. Omnam harama kasav, v'im omar hamocher beferish enosan hamatana l'shliach, hakol magia l'shliach. However, that notwithstanding, the Ramah paskins that if the seller of the widget says explicitly that the 11th widget or the tickets are going, he wants it to go to the shaliach, and he's not interested in giving the gift to the principal, everything goes to the shaliach. Because of hanasivas dezehu l'taima derashi shekasav shecholkin rak biglal safek, and the nasiva says that's according to Rashi, who says because we're not sure. But according to the Yerushalmi, even when the seller makes his wishes known to whom the tickets should go to, they still split it. Umashma me'aramanal shalohaven kedivrei hamarcheshes kilafi hamarcheshes gam Rashi model lahagalacha shecholkin beinehem, and it seems like the Ramah is not paskening like the marcheshes. Now, this is quite in depth. It's quite complex. I don't know why he's going through all of this. So I'm going to skip the next paragraph and I'm going to cut to the chase. So he says, V'yesh od kama sugyas b'shas, demuchach de'im harevach bo al yedei shneim arehim cholkim bo. He says, we have a number of other sources throughout Shas that indicate, and this is the direction where Rav Sharaga is headed, that when profit is incurred through the efforts of two parties, one is the guy who provided the financial backing to purchase and so therefore he's partially the reason why the seller is giving a gift. And the other one is the shaliach, and through his winning personality and his charisma, he's also partially responsible for the gift. So where do we see where two parties contribute to the gaining of an asset that they should split it? So he says, here are some other examples. Isa b'Yerushalmi trumos sa'a truma timeya shel kohen shenafla lemeya shel chulin shel balabayas. If you have one measure of truma that is tame, that belongs to a kohen, and it accidentally falls into 100 measures of chulin that belongs to a Yisrael, balabayas omer la kohen, below demei eitzim ani chayev lecha, ki truma temeya ru'ur rak l'sreifa, tul demei eitzecha. So the Kohen wants to argue, my truma is batel to your, because truma is batel in 100, 1 in 100. So the Kohen can say to him, at least pay me for the added volume of grain that of mine that fell into your stuff. Because now you'll be able to eat 101, or you'll have 101 measures instead of 100. Pay me for that one added measure. The Balabayas can say to the Kohen, nothing doing. He says, before your truma fell into my stuff, it was worth less than a measure of grain because it was tame, and all you could do with it was burn it. You couldn't consume it. So let's say a measure of grain, let's say we're talking about, let's say a pound of grain is worth a buck. Okay, a pound of grain is worth $1, and you want me to give you the $1 because your truma fell into my $100 worth of grain? He says, I'm not paying you $1. I'm going to give you 25 cents because that's what a person would pay for fuel to burn the amount of time that your 1 pound of grain can burn, because that's all it's worth. It's not worth, because before it fell into my grain, it was inconsumable. So therefore, I shouldn't have to pay you more than 25 cents. That's the argument. And the Kohen's argument is no. The fact that a pound of grain fell into 100 pounds of your grain means that it's now batel, and now you can sell 101 pounds of grain for $101. So you're profiting a buck off of my stuff. So which one is it? Is it whose argument prevails? Does the Balabayit's argument prevail because he says your truma was only worth 25 cents before it fell into my grain? Or does the Kohen prevail because he says, because of my 25 cents grain, you now get to make a buck? So upaska hagemara, the lachein hakohen nosein lo demei eitzim v'hasha'ar yachloku beinehem. And what is the Gemara paskin? So the Kohen has to pay the Balabayas 25 cents, so to speak. It says, okay, and there's now 75 cents worth of profit. They split that 50-50. Each one gets 37.5 cents. No, so it basically works out that the Balabayas gets, I don't know, 3/5 or whatever, I'm not sure however you calculate it, but the Kohen basically says, the Lachein HaKohen Nosin Lo Demei Eitzim, Ashar Yachloku Beinehem. So the Kohen has to relinquish. He says, fine. The Kohen sort of, now why does the Kohen have to give him the 25 cents?
Burn it. He has to burn it. That's his loss.
So his loss is
25 cents because he has to burn it anyways. He cannot eat it.
Well, he could have sold it for 25 cents, the Kohen.
So I think to burn it, no?
Yeah, but he could have sold it for 25 cents to anyone to burn it as fuel. So Alma, no. He could have, no, Truma that is Tame can be used as fuel to heat a house. Right, right. That's the argument. So basically the Kohen is entitled to split the profit above and beyond 25 cents. Okay.
But he's losing the 25.
What?
He's losing that.
So he's losing the 25 cents because it fell in. But that's I guess nobody's fault. But the Kohen, I guess you put aside the 25 cents that the Kohen would have gotten anyway, and then you split the profit between the two of them above and beyond the 25
I
cents.
think he has to pay it. I think the Balabait has to pay the 25 cents to the coin and split just the difference. Because that the 25 cents is for the coin.
That's what I would have thought, but that's not what he quotes the Gemara as saying.
So it's like taking a pound out, selling it for $1, and splitting the 75 cents.
That's exactly what he's saying. He's saying basically he's going to sell that pound for $1, and above and beyond the 25 cents is what they split.
75 cents improvement.
So that they split the 75 cents because of the increased value. We got to go, so it's an uneven split. Alma kevin da harevach bal yedei hasa truma shel kohen im ameyasoin shel balabayis cholkin berevach b'shavas. That's another example about where when two people contribute to the increase in value to something, they split the profit. Okay, we'll hold it here.
Ron Mitch says hi.
You all see where he's headed. He's headed in the direction that the shaliach would have to give 50